A question for you. Mike Couch is one of my buddies, Buster's son, was on the starting line all them years, and he said that out of all the guys that ever ran, Snake was the most predictable about his routine. He had a specific routine, and he said you always knew if Snake was in trouble because you could look at your watch and go, "Whoa, something's bad is going on here," because he was so specific every time he came to the starting line. You think that was the key to his success?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was so serious about it. It's not. He was just very serious. If you're talking about just the driving himself, it was that there's probably going to be an arm wrestling match or a fist fighting match to who's going to stage last. I mean, that seemed predictable and stuff. I mean, yeah, at one point in time. I think Snake. He said to me one time. How do you think how do you think you'd do against me? He's like busting my chop. I'm like I don't know. Like it's your boss at the same time too. I'm like I don't know. I think I'd do all right. And I'd even let you stage last. Like so it was. I don't know. We had some pretty good times. I enjoyed myself while I was there.
So what do you think? What do you think was the key to your almost instant success with when you jumped in the seat? I mean, it wasn't instant, but from outward appearances, it looked like you went from the bottom to the top very rapidly. Was it because that Snake had that team in place already, or what was it that was a benefit to you?
Well, it wouldn't take a brain surgeon to like the car that I hopped in finished second in the points.
Yeah.
And so like me being me, it's like if I don't do anything stupid, we got a good chance. And so like not that that's like how you want to go about it, but like don't do anything stupid. Like nobody's got to nobody even has to tell me that. So you get in the car and it's like and Wes was really he was good. I mean, gosh, I didn't make a full run in a top fuel car until the final round of my second race, which was at Phoenix. We ended up winning that race and winning that round. But I ran it to the finish line that time and it ran 300. I'd never been 300 before that round, but they were really good with me and cautious. And it's like, and it's no different than a quarterback that you pull out of college or something like that. Yeah, you don't know who's going to be the next, Tom Brady or the next Duck McFeathers. So I'm sure they were cautious with me, and it's like I'm not a student of the sport, but I've been around long enough to know that you only get one shot. So it's like don't screw it up. And really that's how it was. And I just kept working. It was great equipment, great people. I mean, I had Snake was able to get good crew chiefs. I started out with Wes Cerny, and then I go to Dale Armstrong, and then had Dick LaHaye. Gosh, don't screw it up. It's seriously.
Wow.
So I got to win a lot of races with them, and then I think as you get laps, you either get better or worse, and getting a feel for the car, and just I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the opportunity. So, but yeah, I think that nobody needed to tell me just my first year time just don't do anything stupid and you got a good shot. And that's really what happened, because I really thought, at the time I was rooming with Willie, which worked for Snake for a long time as well. I'm like, gosh, like if Snake drove, we just finished second in the points, why, there's no reason why we couldn't win a championship. And so like, that's in the back of your mind. And it's like, he's not driving. So like, and you're not Don Perdome. So like you do the best that you can. And we ended up finishing third in the points that year. So it was still it was a great year. One Indy and won the Bud Shootout and won Rookie of the Year. So it was an awesome year. It was
I
good times.
remember. I remember that year, Larry. I remember all of it. I was heavy into watching the NHRA races, and I remember all of it. It was good times for you. And I remember when you stepped into the seat. I remember my thoughts at the time were, who is this kid? There's no way this is ever going to work. And wow, you set everything on fire. It was awesome. I want to ask you something here. So your dad ended up driving for Larry Miner for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then you later went to work for Larry Miner. I interviewed Gary Beck. We did a long form interview, and he talked about that transition when he went from his car and worked for Larry Miner. I guess Gary said he doesn't really remember if there was animosity there or anything like that. Was it your dad's time just to be done, or did Larry see something different? Larry Miner.
I think, you know, I mean, I don't have all the details, like I wasn't working there at the time and stuff like that. I think my dad had my dad never liked touring. He never liked being away from home. Like he liked home. And that first season that he drove for Miner, and this is when Larry Miner, very successful
Yeah.
sand drag racing and such, and then he gets into asphalt. Originally, Larry Bowers was the first driver, and while they were testing at Orange County, the car got upside down, and his belts had come loose, and in order to not come out of the car, he held onto the roll cage, and
Ooh.
the yeah, and so it messed his hands up. And
Oh.
Larry Bowers had recommended he's better in full use of his hands. So like he ended up okay. But Larry Bowers recommended my dad. So that's how my dad got the chance to drive in the first place. And so then they were kind of getting their feet wet, went to a few points meets and such. And then, 79, they were going full blown where they're back east. And this is when the nitro cars ran divisionals.
Yeah.
So they ran Division 1 and Division 2. So they spent the whole time back east and then ran all the national events. Well, all of them are, I don't know, 8 of them or 10
Yeah.
of them at the time.
Yeah.
But still, every weekend there was a race going, and that was never my dad's dream. Doing that, and so I think it wasn't as much fun. So I think it just kind of like it worked out. Whether Larry, either Larry, I think it was they were good, and Beck's deal was ending at the time, and he was looking for a job, and it worked out. It worked out good for him. So, but when my dad retired, like that was it, and my chance, my first shot at crewing. Well, like I was still in high school. Graduated high school in '84, and then the Pomona races had come. I'd go hang out at their pit and wash oil pans and stuff, and just dreaming. Because it wasn't my dad's dream to do full touring, but that was mine. Like if I could get paid to work on a fuel car, oh my gosh, that would be like cheating the system. So that's kind of when I graduated high school in '84, and then '85, end of '86, which was the last year that Gary had drove for Larry, and then I ended up getting the job at the end of '86, going to work at Miners, and I worked on Larry's personal car. So like when he would go run, I'd work on him, but I was full time. So I kind of missed, Gary as he's coming out, I'm going in and such. But then at the same time, you're getting paid full time to go to work, but then we're only running, I think on the tour, it's like maybe 18, 20 races at the time, and you're running like 6 or 8 of them. And I wanted more than that. So I ended up leaving there. Went to work for Frank Bradley for, 5-6 months or something like that. And then I was in between gigs, and then that's, when the opportunity to go to work for Prudhomme. Prudhomme was racing funny cars then, and I'd always been around dragsters, and I wasn't a real big fan of funny cars at the time, just because I hadn't been around them. And then, I spent that 2 seasons, the last 2 seasons he drove funny cars, and I had a ball. Like that was it was great. And, here, like I really took that job thinking I was going to do it for a year or so. And, for more or less, stayed at Snakes other than that one season leaving there. I was there for 20 years. So, um, became fond of funny cars at that time.
Okay, you mentioned Dick LaHaye. Dick LaHaye is one of them icons of the sport that I never met Dick personally, but all understandings that I have about him is he was a gentleman racer and just a true great guy. What do you have to say about Dick LaHaye?
He was old school. He's, one of the guys, back, didn't have the sponsorship. He had to make his car run good and make it run efficiently. If he was going to race, um, if he was going to be able to race the following week. So it was, he was a great guy to learn about engines from, great guy to learn, just driving a car, and actually racing, and then racing for a championship at the same time. I'd never really been around that. And so I just happened to be driving while I'm learning all this stuff at the same time. And he cared. I mean, he treated me as well as, like I was one of his own. And I enjoy the time with him. I'm glad as a crew chief. I'm glad that he got his last win with us, and it was Indy. Because when he came to work at Snakes, he'd never won Indy. Himself, or working at the Colettas, or Doug Herbert's, and he'd come to Indy, and he had scowl on his face, and he didn't like the race and all that. And it's like, hate this place and all that. I'm like, it's because you haven't won here, like that's why. And then 2001, we won that race, and you could see all that went away. Like, I mean, he had hate on it because he wasn't in the club yet. And then he won in 2001, and then his last win as a crew chief was 2005, doing it again. It was, I just, gosh, I love the guy. He cared. He cared about me as a person. Like, I mean, we had, a couple wrecks, and like, I mean, he was obviously want to know why it did that, and what are we going to do to make that not happen again. Whether it was the structure of the car or the bearings that were running in the engine. Like, I mean, he didn't want to hurt parts. He didn't want to hurt people, and it was just a great guy to learn from. And it's again, it's Roland was that way too, caring about his people, caring about the parts. Yeah. Hurting the parts doesn't make the engine run better, but you get kind of caught up into it to where you don't have time to fix it, maybe, or to work on it, because the competition's so tough. And if you don't make your car run good, crew chief's going to lose his job. Well, you got guys like Dick LaHaye. It's not worried about losing his job. Like, if you can't make the engine run efficient, he's not gonna work for you anyway, because he's not gonna stay doing it in good conscience. Like, because he knows that engine, an 8-cylinder engine, if all the cylinders are running good, it's going to make more power. It's going to be more efficient, and it showed. I mean, he always did more with less, and it is a great guy to learn from.
I'm glad that he was part of your team. He's such a cool dude. Speaking of Rex, I got to ask you. I've never had the chance to ask you about this. When you cut the car in half, do you remember anything were you? Do you remember the whole thing from beginning to end? I mean, holy crap. I don't know. Was that the first time that we'd ever witnessed that in drag racing? Because I don't remember a car cutting itself in half before yours.
Well, I was going to say which one, because I've had it do that twice to me.
It was the one that I'm thinking of is the Miller car. I believe it was the first time that you did it.
Yeah, okay. The Miller car was at Memphis in 2000, and then the second time we did that was in Vandergrift's car at Gainesville in 2015. Yeah. Okay. So no, so to answer your question on the first one, no, I don't remember. I remember going down the track, and as you pick your target as you're kind of focused down, then all of a sudden, like, your line of sight gets blocked by the cow because like you see this big Miller in your view. And so I knew I crashed, but but I did get knocked out. The cars were so different then. I can't imagine driving something like this, but like going from a car built in 2000 with the belt system and the padding and all that stuff. My no Hans device in 2000, had one in 2015. So my the belts stretched and the 5-point harnesses then and no Hans, that my head got far enough forward that the helmet hit the roll cage and split the helmet. And I got knocked out on that one. So it's like I kind of came to while they're cutting my suit off of me and telling me I've got a broken leg and all that. And I'm like, damn, like, and I'm thinking as they're coming, like, don't cut the suit. I need to wear this, like not knowing, and then asking, did we win? And nobody knew if we won or not. And it's like, well, I knew I wrecked, but I didn't know where I wrecked. If it was past the finish line, all bets are off, at that point. But yeah, no, it was 1,000 foot when that one broke. So, I got a helicopter ride to the hospital and broke my leg and had a concussion. And gosh, it tried to launch my eyeball out of its eye socket. I had a black eye for about 6 months, kind of thing. So, not too much, but the follow-up is in the 2015 with better belts and a Hans device and all that. Oh, I was wide awake for that one, and I watched that one and doing all that. Yeah.
Does your brain comprehend what's happening when it happens, or are you like, whoa, what is this?
I would say if it was early in your career, I would say not a chance. But like it's like you get enough runs, and one of my old crew guys tells the story more than I do. Driving down the racetrack and your line of vision, you can see something on the racetrack, something not supposed to be there. And then and as you steer the car to try to straddle whatever's on, it ends up being a Zeus button on the racetrack. And I could see this Zeus button on the track. And so you get a lot of runs under your belt, your mind slows down and it absorbs everything that's going on, but the first year, first 6 months, there's so much going on and it's so fast. And it's like, wow, was I a part of that? But after a while, you literally, you hear guys talking about and especially now with them only racing to 1,000 foot with the I still call it Winston vision. They'll love me for that. But the big screen, you go by and it's like, like you're watching or the scoreboards, like you can pick up your ET and speeds, because they're still set up at the quarter mile and you're only racing to 1,000 foot. So you just get more comfortable, not nonchalant, but just you get acclimated to the speeds. So
that's exactly
everything slows down.
What you just said to me is exactly how Joe Amato described it. He said, because I said to him one time, like when you get in a car accident, you can literally watch everything happening like it's in slow motion. He said that's exactly the same thing. Your brain actually slows everything down, brings it into focus.
Oh, 100%. I've had some wrecks that's when you know that you're going fast because it takes forever to stop. Like it just keeps sliding, hitting something, and it's just like, come on, you got your hand on the belts wanting to get out of that thing, like it's just, but you get used to it. I tell people it'd be no different that like you're hopping up on the freeway, get going 100 miles an hour and everything's going really fast. Well, if you do 100 mile an hour long enough, well, then you start looking further and you start picking things up and you just get used to the speed and you don't get comfortable with it. You just get acclimated to it.
How did he take to you when you had these incidents? I mean, I know your dad was a caring guy and cared about you a lot. I mean, this had to be hard on him to watch this stuff happen too.
I think, great question. My dad when I raced alcohol, it was never in town. It was, I'm in Douglas, Wyoming, and Boise, Idaho, and Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm all these other places. So then it's like I finally get I get the deal with Snake, and then we're going to do the winter warm up at Bakersfield. And so he's at Bakersfield, and we make the first run down the track, and it's like below national record. And it's like, woo, like everything's great. And then the next run, I don't run over something on the track or whatever. Like, long story short, it blew a tire and it knocked the wing off the car and it spun me around. Well, my dad's in the grandstands with his buddies when that goes on. And so, like, I'm not thinking about that at the time. I got my eyes open and it's like fire and you're sliding and wrecking and you finally come to a stop, and then the ambulance comes to you and you hop in and you're getting checked out. Well, my dad ran down and he came to that and opened the door and I still feel bad, like seeing the look of fear in his face. I felt horrible doing that to him, like, and I'm like, Dad, I'm fine, like, but it was, and I didn't understand that until I became a parent.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know at the time, like, but you could see, I scared the heck out of him. Felt terrible for it. Yeah. So, but I'm like, well, at least we got that one out of the way. And then I went a really long time before I had anything like that happen again. So it was, like, but he was always my first call, every win. And he'd watch the races, and, most of the time they were tape delayed, and I'd call him up and say, hey, like, I hate to spoil the ending to the show, but like, we had a good weekend. Oh, that's bitch.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of your dad, as you can see, I'm reversed here. You see the picture right up here behind me. The Fireside in car at Nitro Revival 2 years ago. Larry, I don't know what you did to that car to make that flame show that you did, but I've been watching a Magic car for years, and these guys and Hoover, the Hoover car, those guys are friends of mine. How the hell did you do that? What was your setup to make those flames? That is incredible.
You know what's I think it was my dad. I don't know, because we brought the same car this year, and we definitely didn't have the same flash as we did, and we didn't do anything different. I got no idea. I don't know. Obviously guys have been doing this stuff for a long period of time, but like I had some guy, Dixon brings his Big Show tuna up to, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's got this little ass pump on it, and it's got all this, well, how much percentage you running? And I'm like, 80%. Why are you running 80? I'm like, because I asked my dad what they ran back in the car then, and he said 80%. So we put 80% in it. Like, it ain't got no 100% or 90 or any of this. It's got 80. So, like, I don't know.
I'm standing out there.
It was fun.
I'm standing out there in the rail, and I'm walking down the line trying to video everybody I can. I kept coming back to your car because I'm like, holy crap, those flames are 12 feet tall.
Yeah,
I got some excellent cutouts. So that was unbelievable.
Yeah, I got, it was just Mercury was in retrograde. I have no idea, man. Like, it was just, it was a moment, and it happened. So.
And that car, which is sitting behind you there, and I see the other car that your dad built after he, got out of racing. Is that a street, just meant for the street? The other car?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, that's his idea of a street car, which is a blown, big block Chevy on alcohol, and so. And then he just he loved car. He started building that car in 1993, and then it kept going, bigger and quicker and faster and all that. And then he ended up getting him and a couple of his buddies that he'd go racing with. They got an altered, and so then they ended up running an altered for quite a while. And then he got to the age where he's like, yeah, this is too much. So sold the altered and then went back to this thing. And then this is what he'd take to cruise nights here in town. So,
wow.
Yeah,
cruise night, huh?
Again, this is going back to the same mindset of the 55. He wanted to be the biggest, baddest king of the street. And he couldn't. I'm like, Dad, you don't, like, because the thing had an Enderley injector on it, and he's driving on alcohol, and driving on the street and trying to get to Lowe's, which is like a mile and a half away from his house. And he would take 5 gallons of alcohol with him. He'd get there and then pour it, and he didn't have enough fuel to get back. This thing, and so then he finally puts it on carburetors and gasoline and stuff. And then he's like embarrassed at how this thing, like, it just doesn't have the same romp to it. And I'm like, Dad, like, nobody's got a time slip. Like, nobody cares, like, the whole idea is to be able to get there and back, like, this thing sounds like a weak pooch, like, and I'm like, Dad, like, again, it's, you can't take that mindset out of him.
Yeah.
So
Well, he moved, and it's probably, I'm sure you really are, it's a great part of your life that he moved back east where you're at, to be able to be around you, and you got to spend that time with him.
100%, because it's he wanted to move out of the valley, and then they moved to Paso Robles, and then it started to get overrun, and then they're looking for another place to go. And I'm like, like, you got to, and he was looking at Arizona. I'm like, if you're going to go out of state, why don't you look here? So they came back here and looked around, and by then we've got a few, he has a few grandkids, and we've got the racetrack right down the street, like, so he ended up being here. I'm so thankful. Like, I've grown up a lot in probably the last few years, and I think having kids and, probably I think also you're closer to the finish line than you are the starting line. So that makes a big difference. But getting that last 20 years of his life here in town, like, I wouldn't have got that. So I'm so thankful for that. The other thing I'm thankful for too, because, like, he had a pretty good relationship with his doctors and stuff when he was in California. So it's like time to update his license. They'd check him out and all that kind of stuff, and they'd sign it off, and he'd go. Well, when he came back here, the doctor that I sent him to, well, they, not just doing a quick physical, they do a thorough one. Well, it turns out, like, he had something on his throat, well, it turns out it was throat cancer, and it was a very aggressive cancer. Like, and so, like, if you didn't get it treated, he'd be gone in 2 years. So it's like, and he don't go to doctors, so, like, I look at it as if he hadn't moved to Indianapolis, like, I'd have lost him then, because how he was. So I got another 20 years with my dad. So I just I felt really, really lucky. And then, and he worked at a local machine shop up until 2023, like, probably a year or so. Like, yeah, and he worked in sandblasting parts and all that kind of stuff. And he took that money, and that was his side cash that he'd throw into his roadster. And so then, started to get too old to do that. And so then he's at home full time working on his car. And so I'd go over to his house on Wednesdays, and we have a local, it's not a Bob's Drive-In, it's a Mug and Bun here local in Speedway, and it's a drive-in with a car hop and all that stuff. So whatever hot rod car I got at the time, I'd pick him up, and we'd go to Mug and Bun and do the whole car hop service thing. And I got a year's worth of lunches with him and telling stories and all that. And so it's I wouldn't have had none of that if he hadn't moved back here. So I just, if the Lord had anything to do with any of that, I appreciate it, because it was great. Good time.
All of us should be as fortunate to be able to have that time with our family before they're gone. And I guess we'll wrap this up, Larry. You got any final thoughts about your dad? Anything that stands out? What's the future look like for you?
Oh gosh,
Tough question, right?
I got right now. I have the car that I ended up. I've got a '66 Chevy 2 that I bought. That was kind of more of a sleeper, because the '55 Chevy that I had on the street that I got in so much trouble with was too radical for the street. So I kept this car this whole time. So now the last 10 years or so, I've been doing drag and drive events. Yeah. So I'm in the middle of a motor swap, going from an LT4 to an LT5, because I have this Dixon gene in me that says that it's not quick and fast enough yet. So I'm doing that, and kind of the fuel cars. It's winter for the fuel cars, and it's winter for everybody in Indianapolis. So then now's the time to. So I'm working on my Chevy too. I want to go hit Drag Week and some of the drag and drive events this summer with it. I'll tow out. I don't know where we're going out west. And when Steve gives us a date and a place on Nitro Revival, I'll drag Pop's Fireside in car back out there again because I enjoy. That's such an awesome event, and it's not. And I was a kid when all these guys were doing this stuff. But that's the thing. I was a kid when they were doing that stuff, and I could like walk in that pit area and having all them front engine fuel cars all lined up like that. It's like a scene out of Fantasy Island. If your listeners are old enough to remember that show, it was just like getting placed in a moment in time, and I love that. And I have that opportunity, and I'm going to do it as long as that revival event's going. So I got that going, and then my son's got a super comp license, and he's got a few people that are going to let him drive their cars. So we're gonna do that stuff. But it's I got no hard plans on fuel car stuff. I just got plans around car stuff. That's what I do have plans on.
Well, I had Steve on right after the announcement was made that Irwindale was closing, and he had no solid answers yet at that point about what they were thinking. Bakersfield, they were thinking Pomona. So we're all sort of sitting here waiting. I know Steve's dealing with a lot out there with the fire, with
Oh
his
my
house
God.
burned down. It's just what a
Yeah.
tragedy that is. But all just I keep thinking about, just think of all the things that were lost that are irreplaceable in that fire. What a damn shame.
Yeah, it's tough. And you even think about, his car. Like he had that car since high school.
Yeah.
It's like so that's I've had my car since high school, so I can relate. Not as long as he's had it, but yeah, it's part of the family, and he lost a family member along with all the other things.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's like I don't know why some of these events happen or why they have to happen or why we have to go through them. But it's, yeah, we'll find a place. Steve will find us a place
Yeah.
in time.
Yeah.
He's got a whole year to do it, and wherever he picks, it'll be great, and it'll
Yep.
be fun, and it'll have all the same people at it, and the cars. Hopefully all the people will be there. Like gosh, our whole crowd's getting a little bit older, and we lose
Yeah.
some of them every year. But I'm gonna keep going, and I feel lucky to have got this car back, while my dad was still here, and got to talk some stories about it, and then when he's gone, I'm like, what the heck am I doing with this car? And I'm like, and a few more days go by, and I'm like, I got this car because my dad built this car with his hands. Like, I mean, the fenders, like he says to the day he died, he said he still has fiberglass in his arms from, doing those fenders over the wheel wells and stuff. And it's just like, I have the car because that's a piece of my dad. So like, cars, cars connect a lot of people, and I'm just fortunate that he, showed me the way.
Well, I feel the same way that you do. With the first time that I went to Nitro Revival, call it Nitro Row for lack of a better term. I come around the corner. I got this whole plan laid out about how I'm going to film this event. I come around the corner and I'm looking down this row of Nitro cars. All these cars I had posters of, the loaner, Tony Nancy's car, posters hanging on my wall. I was literally moved almost to tears, standing there going, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's such a neat deal, and again, it's like it's not for everybody, and not everybody gets it, but the people that do get it will bring you to tears, because it's
Yeah.
like it's bringing you back to like, I mean, Steve has said it a few. It's like an age of innocence, like people just, they got their buddies together and they grabbed an engine out of a junkyard and put it together and went and raced, and some of them did good and some of them didn't, but they all got great memories and good times, and they weren't hurting anybody, and they it was just it was good times, and to be I feel like a fly on the wall almost, because I wasn't old enough to be one of the guys. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a kid of one of the guys, and so but it definitely ever since I was a little kid, all I ever wanted to do is grow up and race top fuel cars like my dad, and I got a chance to do that. So
And you did it.
I I feel Blessed to be Larry Dixon Jr.
Hey, I got a suggestion for you. Now, J. Ed Horton, I know you're watching this. Don't yell at me. Don't call me and yell at me. But J. Ed's got his spring startups party out there at Tom Hanna's old shop every spring. I
Eh,
bet he'd welcome you to have that car out there.
he's beat on me a few times about
Has
it.
he?
So yeah, yeah. I think last year I had a conflict and I couldn't make it, but maybe this year.
Now, there's a rumor that Daryl Gwynn's going to be out there. Now, it's just a rumor at this point. I know that my buddy Ross Howard's going to be bringing the custom body car out there. Paul Brown, I think, is bringing the Doug Setters Corvair down. Again, all rumors at this point, but it's going to be a hell of an event. So
Yeah,
we're going to be there with our cameras again this year. So maybe we'll see you there. That'd be awesome.
I hope to be there. How's that?
That I'll hope for it too. Larry, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your time and you coming on and talking about your dad and keeping a piece of this history alive. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate you letting me come on and talk about him. I'm his biggest fan, and being able to brag on him any chance I get. So thank you.